All right, so welcome to a special edition of the Candid podcast. I'm here talking with Rev0lution. This is someone who will remain anonymous unless you know, you don't know. And we're just going to have conversations from time to time about stuff, things, and more. And today's conversation partially started around the energy and vibration currently taking place in the UK as it relates to the pending vaccines, because people have to realize the world is not watching the same news. We may be hearing the same news be passed down or same directions, but we're not watching the same events take place around the news. So while we all may know that, yes, COVID exists and the concerns about COVID or the happenings around COVID are relatable in most places in the world, people's reactions, subsequent legislation, uprisings and disagreements. There's so much taking place that isn't known. So you never know who may be standing with you somewhere else in the world unless you reach out past what you're being blocked on. And so right now, talking to Rev0lution, one of the things that came up was the news that I saw today has the UK accepting the vaccine and pushing for the first instances to be shared next week. When I said that, you said that it wasn't readily available or wasn't on mainstream news, and that you thought that they may push it into Liverpool.
I said Liverpool. Yeah, I mean, but I believe they will roll it out in a city as a trial to see what sort of problems they face, and then they'll probably expand it across to other cities. But they would never start with London, that's for sure.
When you say roll it out and see what happens, do you think that there's any way that this is going to be mandated, or will it continue to be pushed as, okay, if you want to work, if you want to get on a plane, if you want to continue doing this, if you're a front care health worker, or do you think that you can foresee a system where they're like, hey, for you to do this, this must happen? It's kind of like just what it is. What do you think is the rollout?
Do you know what? We're living in the most crazy times ever. I mean, I think that the first thing that we've got to remember is that whole social distancing thing, like, really stopped our interactions with each other. It stopped people from talking to each other. It stopped us from going into our local shops, our small and medium enterprises, and supporting them. So, you know, I think a lot of people are disassociated with each other and only watching what they're fed from mainstream news. Especially, like I'd said to you before, people above a certain age that have lived in the world, say over for, starting to believe everything that's said. And so I just, you know, touching on your point about the news, it's very funny because we are in a information war right now, and it's whoever controls the media seems to be controlling the agenda. So touching back on your rollout, what I've heard is that, you know, there will be a vaccine coming out and it will start in a city. I vaguely remember it being Liverpool. It might not be right, but they're gonna have the armies sort of the military sort of helping out, which they have done in the past in the testing, and then they may push it out. And I would say to you, at least 60-70% of this population in England will be ready to take this vaccine. Not me, though.
What do you think keeps you exempt from taking this vaccine? Because if you believe that this many people are going to take it, how do you become exempt from taking it?
I mean, it's even like now. I mean, I'll be honest with you, during lockdown, one of the most difficult things that people face is trying to make enough to live, to eat. Like, you know, a lot of these small businesses are closing down. So you do see some posts where people talked about the Magna Carta, which was their right to live, you know, which was a document signed to allow people to continue with their work. I don't know much about it. I'm not going to go into it, but I know that there are pockets of people that are completely against everything that's happening. Unfortunately, this is not being showed in any of the news. For example, there was protests in central London. There's been protests all over every major city. It's not being showed on the news. So I think that right now people are having very many distorted views about what's going on. And in terms of myself, during lockdown, I was working. I was trying to feed my family. Also, I don't wear the mask because the mask is, to me, it's more unhealthy than wearing it. So I would walk into the shops and I'll say I'm exempt, and I'd leave it at that. So, I mean, a lot of it's scare tactics. Even when I was driving around that night, no police officer was pulling me. I think it's people that are just fearful of what's happening, just abide by it like sheep.
Well, honestly, to truly understand what's taking place now, I shared a video today that it's called The Psychology of 2020. But to explain it to you without even showing you the video, this is more of self-policing at the highest of highest. Yeah. Because no, we have yet to see police go in, raid a place, drag people out. There have been some questionable exchanges where someone was arrested, or there was cases where there were physical exchanges in opposition of wearing a mask or to enforce a mask. But on the scale of where the fear and self-policing exists now, there is no act, no different than there's nothing yet to justify the push for world lockdowns or shutdowns. There's no one set act or law in any place that has mandated or forced vaccinations, masks, or lockdowns. So if you really understand what's going on right now, you would understand that this is self-policing at the highest of levels, because the suggestion comes from television, from people who you feel are too far away. They have way more authority. Blindly, you don't know them. You will never see them. You will never eat, sleep, or talk with them. And yet, for some reason, when they narrate or dictate suggestions, it is taken as orders. When it's repeated and repeated and repeated by the media, then it's repeated in consideration, then it's acted upon by the people next to you. So it just starts to follow the monkeys down the whole line of, well, everyone else was doing it, so I mean, it's not that bad. I mean, I might as well. And this is anything. We are looking at the largest psychological warfare ever that is using data that has been put in place, processes that have been implemented for decades, and some of them have been in place for centuries, and the use of fear has been in place for eons. So it's actually like being in a war against someone who's been at war their entire life, and you're just now figuring this shit out. It doesn't end in a few months or a few years. This is a fight for your soul, and your soul is eternal. So this is either, one side knows it's either control or destroy, or control or be destroyed. The other side is still trying to put their head together and wake up from this sleep that is the magic cast over your being. So yes, when I look at what's taking place, no matter where it is, every single compromise, every time you do it just because it makes this easier, or just because, or it's not that big of a deal, you have made a compromise, and those compromises add up. Crumbs do make a cake, and in this instance, these are major crumbs that will make an even mightier cake if we allow them to keep falling into place. So yeah, complacency at the smallest level is still complacency. It's kind of like saying a lie is it's only a little lie. No. A lie is a lie. That's it. A lie is a lie.
No, I want to touch on something before I forget it. Like, I think that Britain, like, rule Britannia, they use this all over the world. If you look at the world and how it's sort of come about, the colonization and so on and so forth, it's always been divide and conquer. So if you step into one, let's say you take it to a small level, you step into a group of friends and you tell this friend they're saying something about you, and tell the other friend they're saying something about them, you've divided them, and now they don't like each other because they're hearing this story, and then you can step in and conquer because you're ultimately becoming the best friend. And this is what Britain has done from the past. And I'm now saying that Britain is no longer Britain. It's a whole collective of powers across the world. Now we're starting to see and call it the deep state. So looking back in the day, we're talking about them saying, oh no, the blacks are like this. oh, the Negroes are like this. Oh, let's persecute them. You know what I mean? They can't do anything. They're all thieves. Then you look at the Asian population. Like when I say Asian, I mean South Asian, like Indian, so on and so forth. They changed India into Pakistan and India. They did the same to Cyprus. They've done it across the whole world. And now what they've done is, after 2001, the terrorist was a bad Muslim that was like chanting like lots of scary sort of things. And now we have the faceless enemy, COVID, which could be your little brother, could be your mom, could be anyone. So now, you know, it's all working to divide us and make us hate each other. And now it's become so bad that people are completely lost. And, you know, it was so funny when you say follow the monkey down the hallway. I wanted to talk about this experiment they did. I think they did it in a dental surgery, a doctor surgery.
You're talking about the same thing. And the bell would play and they would stand up. That's the one I played today. Yeah, I played that today. That's a part of the video.
That brings me to the last point. It brings me to the last point, which is NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. I believe that people are very much brainwashed because it's easy to be brainwashed, isn't it? I mean, in all our life, all we do is watch TV and watch this person with a Ferrari and watch that person with a big house and this person with lots of girls, and you watch hip hop and rap videos. And we have now been so conditioned to sell our soul for a little bit of money or for a little bit of fame that it's come to a point where people are so disenfranchised with the way of honorable life that we are finally facing, this is what you call end times, because either you're going to make the decision to live by your word, by your honor, or you're going to just be a sheep and follow the flock. And when you talked about
keep going.
Sorry, say that again.
No, keep going. I'll tell you.
Now you're talking about self-policing. And you know what? That's happening all around us. I mean, like your own auntie is going to say, what'd you go there for? Like, you know, like, why are you going out? Because it's COVID. All right. So hang on a minute. Like, all right. So everybody should shut down their business here so that we all get in debt, right? Oh, the government's helping us out. They're paying 60% of our salaries, which obviously that doesn't count for self-employed people, because there's a lot of people out in this world that make their money from their own businesses and not just working for the man. So I believe this is
But that goes back to what we were saying, is that it doesn't matter what business. If you're working for money, you are a part of a game where you've never even seen the players or creators. And the creators are your ignorance or not knowing that there's a much, 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 much larger game at play.
Sure, but one thing I want to say about this is, right, there is working for money to go and buy all the luxuries in the world, and there's working for you to be able to afford food, your you know, we're talking about rent and things like that. Unfortunately, if you look at a country like England is very, very small. There's a lot of, it's very concentrated. The land and the weather here is not good enough for us to grow our own vegetables. So, I mean, one of the things I would like to say to people living in a tropical environment, and, you know, I'm from there, I'm from a tropical place, is grow your own vegetables, grow your own food, and harvest your own water. The idea of this is to become self-sufficient. Unfortunately, you know, you can easily say, yeah, if you're playing for money, then you're in the game. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of us are in the game, because if we're not able to survive, we're not able to feed our families.
And this is that hard reckoning. This is that point of opportunity. This is that point of chaos. This is that point of madness. This is that point of the unknown. This is the point of terror and fear that I've been waiting to go through with everyone, is when we stopped the system and went back to the world. When we stopped the unknown thing that has us compelled to follow this lure, this thing, like you were talking about, what compels people to do stuff, and it's, you say a Ferrari or more money or some fame, and I'm like, no, actually, what compels people to do things are things that have value that you never gave value to. The value of that thing was taught to you, shown to you, repeated to you, and eventually you accepted it. No different than that example from those people that stand up, but you never placed value on that thing. I don't know a single child that would place value on money because one, they wouldn't know it. Today they couldn't even see it, and before they couldn't even understand it. It would be a sheet of paper that they would rather draw on. So to get down to it, it's a psychological game that no one sees what's at the end of the string. You can see the lure, but what's at the end of the line? No one has ever seen it. It's not banks. It's bigger than that. It's bigger than any bank or bank owner.
Do you not see that this is something that's been going on for centuries?
Yes, and it's something that can stop. I agree with you. I have seen it. I see it clearly. I've seen it every eon in lifetime. I see it through every dimension. When I come back here, I see how simple this is. And I'm like, that's the part. It's so simple that people are just scared to stop. I can take it to imprisonment. If I took 150,000 people out and said, hey, we're going to march to this location where they don't want us.
Yeah.
Do you think that that these people are going to be scared? One, if they wanted to be there. Two, they deserve to be there. And three, they feel they need to be there. They're going to go there, and there aren't 150,000 police officers to impart the fear, to stop it. There would have to be other things to stop this moving thing that's in unison. That's where numbers start. So if we go into just the thought, forget military, let's just go to the thought. If everyone stopped for 45 days and just spent no funds, made no funds, and lived off what they had in their cabinets, what their families had, what their neighbors had, and the conversations that would come, the conversations that would be avoided, the looks and change, no different than how this mask and these conversations have come into the world, there would be a whole new conversation and consideration that comes into place. There would be a whole new thing. That. So that's what I'm saying. When I hear you say this, I'm always like, it's as simple as this fucking mask. It's just that a different thing brought this variable, and now the whole world is considering something different. So my consideration is like, okay, guys, before another magic trick gets you into another debt system that's going to take longer to figure out, that is going to be more ingrained into your daily processes, that eventually will be a part of your DNA and your body movement, stop. Just stop. But I can't eat. Yes, you can. The trees are still going to put fruit down. So you think that all of a sudden the whole world is going to be like, hey, just let all the fucking everything die? No, none of that. The fact that people won't think through that is where it gets difficult for me, because it's like, it's so fucking lonely having to think up all this shit because you're not asking the right questions to yourself. You're asking me questions that if you pose the questions, it will lead to another question. You'll be like, wow. So yeah, like nothing really stops. Nothing really changes.
I think you're 100% right. And I think, like, you know, the only problem being in countries like, let's say, for example, this country, aside from the, you know, the climate, you know, I touched upon trying to grow your own vegetables and trying to become self-sufficient.
It's not about that. If you keep thinking that, that's where you can get stuck. Again, right now, nothing would have to stop. Ships would still travel, planes would still fly, food would still move. It would just move with different intentions. It wouldn't be moving for the sake of, I got to make this money and get them here by this time and add these pesticides so this doesn't die. It would naturally move where, yeah, it may not be as much, or who knows, it can be a lot more, because I know how much food is discarded and thrown away just to keep the prices up. So we don't know. Nothing would change. It would not be chaos and crazy. The chaos would take place here. And if you don't process it in here, the chaos will be direct. You would be the people fighting this super major shift in possibility. But it would only take a few generations. And then it's like we're on to something that never could have happened if we don't start. Nothing happens if nothing happens. My brother would always say, nothing changes if nothing changes. Just you can keep saying no forever.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think people are in their own mental prison. Unfortunately, I think it's very difficult to start off this movement until we get out to enough people and get these type of messages out there. Unfortunately, you're not going to see a lot of changes. I've sat there and talked to so many people, and it's like I said, that self-policing comes in.
I've seen enough changes in me. I've seen enough changes in me not to care about what the masses need, because just because I don't live in the world that you do doesn't mean that I don't live. I still live happily and fully just not with all the attachments and contracts. I'm talking to you. You have more contracts in the world than I do, and yet we still communicate, love each other, vibe, and continue to express. So you can say in your reality that you don't think it's going to happen or to take a lot more people. I think it just takes one, and it starts with me. And if I keep living it and keep doing it, then one other person will do it. I will not wait for the masses. And if you have to wait for the masses,
against the wall. You put my back against the wall, because I totally agree with your principles. I you know, and one thing you touched upon is love. You know, love is a very important factor in all of this. You know, the ability to be able to discuss and still love what the people are about. You know, we've lost that within ourselves. A lot of people that are, I don't want to jump off the subject, but a lot of people right now, love has disappeared from them, you know, and it's more about, like you said, you just touched upon the contracts. I have contracts. I've got a little contract, a young little baby contract. I've got lots of contracts, so to speak. And unfortunately, I feel like I'm trapped by it. You know, I want to be able to just cast those chains away. I want to be able to just drop that. And you know, I'm making a few moves that, you know, with me and you have discussed, to be able to kind of put me in a place where, you know, I don't rely on it. And like you said, I have just been living. This is one thing that I will say to people out there is, if you're very money hungry and you're just going out there chasing money, because we talked about magic a couple of times, and magic happens. Magic is a beautiful thing where, you know, everything you need somehow manifests itself. You know, it just happens, and it happens in such a beautiful way. And it's happened to me. Unfortunately, like every human being, I have my up days and I have my down days. Sometimes when I have my down days, I feel like, oh my God, the world's disintegrating. And then when I have my up days, I feel like a superhero. Fortunately, when I speak to you a lot, you ground me and you bring that happiness back in me, because you're a pure soul, you're a pure spirit. And that comes from the light. You know, when a kid, like when you see a baby is like a light. You know, the light is, if the baby wants something, the baby wants something. It's not going to play those silly mind games to get it. It's gonna want what it wants. And I see that light in you. I'm trying to, you know, I look at the situation that I can only look at that situation that I'm in here. And unfortunately, people, the masses, I said to you, I believe there's only 10 to 15%, maybe 20% of England, United Kingdom, whatever you want to call it, that will rebel against any sort of vaccine that's put out. I believe that there are many people here.
What's the difference between rebel and resist? Just so I'm clear.
Rebel is a complete, no, I'm not doing it. Resist is like, oh no. Okay, all right, I'll do it now. You know, it's like you said. I think you've hit upon a very good point. How far would you go before you say, all right, I'm just going to bow down to the powers? And unfortunately, I mean, I don't think how people are seeing this. I mean, the American election right now is monumental, because this is the forces of dark against light. I mean, there was blatantly election fraud, but the news out here saying, nah, nothing to see here, move on, you know, concede, Trump, concede.
So you've lost. UK news is also reporting that information that's going on in the United States. Okay.
Yeah, no, but it's only like, you know, I know, funny enough, I try not to watch the news a lot. So some points you might tell me that this is what I'm seeing, but I haven't seen the news. Whenever I watch the news, it feels like it just depresses me. So I don't watch the news, but unfortunately I have some vested interest in the American election. So I see what Google says, Google and, you know, Fox News and all of those fake news channels just talk rubbish. I mean, Biden, where's the video about Biden touching all those little kids up? I mean, I saw that video, and ultimately as a parent, I felt like, wow, I'm disgraced. And now that video is nowhere to be seen. You know, so I'm just saying people are just like, even when I spoke to family members and I said, you know, Trump's going to win, they're like, come on, the news said he's not going to win. He's out. The news have said. So if the BBC over here says that something's happened, then it bloody was happened. All right. So, you know, I don't believe in all that bullshit. Sorry to swear, but I don't believe in what they're saying. I don't know anymore. You know, anyone can get confused from what's happening because it's really like the time where so much fake stuff is being spread out there across the world that no one knows their left hand from their right. You know, and it's only people like yourself that keep pushing this beautiful message. Your message is not about any particular president. It's not about any particular. It's just about you being. I mean, you said something beautiful to me last time we spoke. You talked about being a man, and like an animal, you have the right of abode, or you have the right to be wherever you want without invisible boundaries. And you know, you just blew me away with that.
It's so simple. It's really so simple. And
simplicity is the answer, isn't it? Simple is always the way forward.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like I've been going on a little bit, but I want to mention a couple more bits. I know that this election is a fraud. Yeah, I know for a fact, because even, you know, I mean, if you hear about these African countries where, like recently in Kenya, in fact, there was an issue between Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila.
Mm-hmm.
And these two people there was an election, and Raila managed to overturn the election. He overturned the election, but unfortunately, I believe the powers that be stopped a lot of people from voting. So the second time round, Uhuru won the election again, right? When I say again, I don't mean again, but I meant he won. So I know when Trump says that this is not a third world country, I'm absolutely disgusted that a country like USA, a continent like that, can actually have such manipulated results and still go to the masses and make them believe that Biden won. Who knows Biden? No one knows him. Like, so I just think it's a disgrace, to be honest. Like, and I think this is that battle there. The US election is a battle of good and bad, because I believe that if this fake news and a rigged election, if they pass this without any sort of without any justice, the world is going to know that, you know, we're in some very dark times.
I'm close to how you worded that, and I'll take the same sentiment and say this, and this is the closing. I could care less who wins the election, because the first and main fight will always be within you. Today, the first thing I wrote in my journal, this is the second time I'm saying it, and actually only the second time in my life I've ever told anyone what I wrote in my journal the day I wrote it as my first exit in entrance into this world. But the first thing that hit my pen was, the world doesn't exist until you do. None of this exists until you do. And so right now, if I just want to get back to the elections and what they mean based on the bigger picture I see unfolding, two major things are going to play a role. One, if this election is further proven to be tainted with, it is, and over time comes to be, that not only did Trump win, he won by a landslide. In addition to all the fraud, it is going to shake the foundations of every election that has ever had these machines in them over the past 20 years all over the world. Now that's a scary thing. That right there is really, really scary. The second thing that I see happening, because the United States is the larger creator of entertainment, that is their main source, is entertainment and financial services. There's no product. It's the weirdest thing. It's like you can't touch them. They're not tangible. But what we're about to see is the crumbling of the media dynasty. If Donald Trump wins, we're looking at media dynasties that go all the way back to
Rupert Murdoch. You're talking about the Rupert Murdochs of this world.
All of them. It's going to shake the
I
foundation
can't
of
wait.
everything that was considered news. Mainstream media will be rocked.
I'm waiting for this change. I'm calling for revolution.
But that's your name, Rev0lution. This is the Candid podcast. This is one of many conversations because we talk often. This is the first time we record it. So thank you for checking in. You can hear this on podcasts that stream from Spotify, YouTube. It's playing on Google and in other places. Press like, press share. I'm heavily censored right now and heavily banned all over. I can see it every time I put up keywords. These words will get you banned or shadow censored, guaranteed. Pandemic, vaccine, Trump, love Trump, I said pandemic, but pandemic, virus, vaccine, COVID, coronavirus, fraud, scandemic. It's ridiculous, but these will trigger the algorithms to drop you on everything. So again, thank you for sharing. Thank you for listening, and stay in touch. Appreciate you.
But one second, if you say it's your opinion, then they can't say anything because it's only your opinion.
It doesn't matter. What I'm talking about are the algorithms. The algorithms don't listen to the context of your words. All they pick up is the keywords. So you can say your opinion and all this other stuff. It does not matter. So thank you very much for checking in. To be continued. Holla back.